how do you have life experiences? How do you facilitate that? That's a real question right now.
You are completely outsourcing the creativity. And if everybody's doing it too, nobody is really standing out.
It is super easy if someone asks you, giving you some opportunity. It's way easier to say no.
There's a misconception, I think, about where interesting things come from. And I think people think that they have to come from rare or magnificent experiences. They really don't have to at all.
Hey, welcome to The Great Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. I am Kevin Lieber, and returning from his milk run to get milk and cigarettes after several weeks is Matthew Tabor.
That's right. That's right. Skim milk and camel filters. That's what it was.
Skim milk is like always sold out. I don't know if are you
really?
Yes. I don't know if it's like too popular or it's not popular enough so they don't stock it well. But for some reason, skim milk, there's like, it's either sold out or there's like one left everywhere I go. I don't know what's going on with the skim milk.
Well, I've just been drinking almond milk for a few years now, so I don't keep track of actual real milk. But yeah, by the way, if anybody likes the almond breeze kind of stuff, go to Walmart instead. Their house brand, it's in a green carton. It's actually better than anything else that I've had. It tastes closest to real milk out of any of the almond milks. Unsweetened. It's like 30 calories a glass. Oh, it's fantastic. Excellent stuff. And it's cheaper too, because it's like $2.50 a half gallon at Walmart. So it's like, ooh, do I want to buy the name brand stuff that's not very good? Or do I somehow want to buy the bargain bin almond milk that's basically regular milk? Anyway, there you go. There you go. Stock up.
Well, there's your almond milk recommendation for the week. I had a terrible week last week, which is why there was no solo recording, because I had all of my teeth jackhammered and then I got an infection.
Yeah.
And then I could do nothing but lay in bed for 5 days. So it's nice to be alive again. I appreciate being in good health. You always do after you're in poor health for a little bit. It feels good to be energetic and able to talk to you and not just writhing in fatigue in bed.
Yeah. And I'm pleased to be on a connection. Did I tell you the actual numbers in Tunisia? The Wi-Fi that I had was 2 megabytes down and 0.9 up.
Wow.
I haven't had Wi-Fi that bad in probably 20 years. I remember sitting on the toilet in the now demolished Stardust in Las Vegas, because that was the only, like, that had the best connection in the room, right? At that time, Wi-Fi wasn't, beaming, everywhere very well. So you still had like hot spots and cold spots and all that. The best place was in the bathroom on the toilet. Pop the seat down. And that was still better than this Wi-Fi that I had last week. So when you said, I've had this tooth jackhammering, I've got an infection, I'm probably not going to make it. It's like, okay, that's fine. That's fine. My internet's not that good. I'll wait a few days. It's blazing fast. Getting used to the mouse again. Life is good.
Worse than toilet Wi-Fi. Well, there was something that came up that we wanted to talk about today, that someone tweeted something that articulated an idea that I have brought up before in the past that, maybe I didn't do as good a job explaining. I'm hoping, Matt, that you have the tweet so we can actually read it. And it has to
I'm 7 steps ahead of you. I've just popped it into the episode chat and the general chat.
Well, the general idea is as part of my kind of like ongoing series complaining about modern storytelling, something that I had mentioned before, and I think that we talked about together, was that it seems as though, and I actually do have a personal story about this that I would like to tell, but it seemed as though a lot of modern media is written essentially just based on other media. I mean, obviously we have reboots, and of course, like those are based on previous installments of a franchise. But just generally speaking, it seems like we don't get really unique perspectives on storytelling, and instead we're just regurgitating a lot of things, which seemed, in my opinion, to be coming from, I would guess, largely millennial writers who are basing all of their ideas off of, I don't know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Back to the Future and Indiana Jones and Star Wars, and just the crap that they watched as a kid has informed the new, in kind of in air quotes, stories that they're telling, rather than coming from interesting life experiences. So this tweet just popped 3 days ago, and it was the exact same thing that I was trying to say. And I think it says it in just a couple of sentences better than my bloviating is able to explain it. So why don't you go through this tweet and then we could talk more about it.
Yeah, God Disc put this out and said authors no longer write according to their lived experiences. They write conglomerations of media and insipid fantasies inspired by that media. There are few modern authors who have lived notable lives. This is a great loss. And this is an extension really of what Kevin was saying, that it's not just, it's really important to make the distinction between writing from something you've experienced and then writing from secondhand experience. And that's when you write based on other media, you're kind of a photocopy of a photocopy, and you lose quality, you lose definition, you lose, really any element of uniqueness. The unique things are generally unique because they're bad. But this is a massive, massive difference between like the last 15, 20 years, really the last 10 years, and pretty much, I don't know, the last 10,000. There wasn't a whole lot of writing from other media until recently because there wasn't a tremendous amount of other media to access. You can see derivative stuff. When you think derivative now, it's like, oh, you write this fantasy thing that has like a wizard and a warrior, and like you look at that and just be like, okay, this is derivative of X, Y, and Z. There was derivative stuff in centuries past. There were people who tried to write things like the Iliad and the Odyssey. There were people who tried to write like Shakespeare. There are people who tried to write like every early poet and novelist, from the Pushkins to the Coopers to the, whomevers. And then there was a push, now, like there was a famous push to do this gonzo style, like I'm going to splatter the world with my life, and then, show you the Jackson Pollock painting of it, that I think a lot of people talked about and never really did. But derivative has always been a thing to one degree or another. But now I don't think people have literally any personality to tweak the things they're pulling out of the media they're kind of sourcing from. You see things that aren't very good. Okay. One of them is romances. There are not as many good relationships. When I say good, I mean realistic. Not as many realistic relationships in stuff in the last 10 years, TV movies, as there used to be. One thing that is morbid, but a newish thing to me is I feel like I can tell when I feel like I can tell when when there's a show with a hospital dying scene or plot. I feel like I can tell whether the person who wrote that has actually experienced it. I did not have that perspective 5 years ago. Now I see things that I never would have seen before, both being extremely realistic and extremely not, but anyway, this is a big deal, right? This is really, really important that people are trying to, a few of them are writing books, but making YouTube videos, doing all of this stuff based on experiencing the world secondhand. AI has to do it. AI cannot experience anything firsthand. It is drawing exclusively from other people's stuff. And so it will be making things that are secondhand experience. Well, hardly anybody is doing anything interesting that can result in unique media of any kind, right? And that's what jumped out from this. I tweeted that a lot of YouTubers, artists, and people involved in political discourse need to think very hard about this point. It's a tremendous problem that people are thinking about politics, which is essentially what do we do about people? That's what politics is how do we live as people who have no idea about how anybody lives. They're boring. They don't know how anybody else lives. It stinks. So it's a tremendous issue for people who are interested in politics. So that's the opening kind of salvo on this.
Yeah, that everyone's life experience is based upon other people's life experiences. And
tragic thing.
And you're right. And then it just gets diluted and degraded as that copy of a copy that you mentioned before, until everything is just so disassociated from reality that it is a very confusing world to live in, not only just in storytelling, but like you said, in people's political rants and all of that stuff, where it's so far removed from what people are like, because they don't actually know what people are like. What people are like is just based upon the other things that they've consumed, essentially virtually. The story that I wanted to tell is that I actually have firsthand knowledge of a writer who deliberately admitted that, I don't recall, I wouldn't, even if I remembered what show he was writing for, I wouldn't say, because that would be a bad idea. But he did say that he would just pull plots from old Star Trek episodes. He would just watch the original Star Trek, William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy era, find a Star Trek plot that he thought he could then twist or mold or shape in some way into this new show that he was writing. He was a staff writer on some sci-fi show, and his plots were just Star Trek plots. That's what he did. Just watch Star Trek, essentially copied it, replaced the characters and tweaked the dialogue, and here's your new episode. So I have a literal example of this actually happening, of what God Disc tweeted about, what you and I are talking about. This isn't just some theory that we're expanding upon. It actually happens. Directly happens.
Well, you could get away with it for a long time. You can get away with it for a really long time. In music, you could get away with it for a super long time. You won't be able to get away with it pretty soon, okay? Because that conglomeration, amalgamation, whatever, AI can do it in a snap, and it will be just as good as you're taking Star Trek, the original series, and repurposing it.
Your human AI work That's what it is. You're just being a human AI, just stealing from other stuff and, putting it together.
That's right. So this will be totally irrelevant. It kind of already is, but it will be officially useless really soon, like in a year. So the question is, what can you do and why? There really has never been a better time to to be uniquely human, because everybody's going down this route. I was really pissed off that YouTube was pushing this thing a couple days ago through the creator's account that suggested, I don't know, their new tools. There's like AI title writing things in it, whatever. And I'm like, you are completely outsourcing the creativity of all the people on the platform to whatever code you've got that generates titles. What a useless thing. And if everybody's doing it too, nobody is really standing out. Well, there's a comment when we were talking about this stuff on Twitter from Nasser Games. I said, well, how does I'll read it exactly. How does one not become boring without being in great debt, being of great wealth, or grinding to a higher financial class, or giving up a lot to join a cultural cause like military, says foreign aid exchanges, so let's say like international charity type things, Habitat for Humanity, whatever. So I had a really long set of flights, Tuesday, Wednesday. And this is all I thought about. When I wasn't sleeping for like 32 hours, this is what I thought about. I played one game of Monopoly on the in-flight entertainment. And that was the extent of me not really thinking about this issue. Yeah.
Well, because the issue is at this point, how do you have life experiences? Because that's the question, right? If we're saying that you can't create something interesting without drawing upon interesting and unique life experiences and the idiosyncrasies that come along with that you can't really make up, that's what's beautiful about having life experiences, that you run into circumstances that you wouldn't have been able to imagine. How do you facilitate that? That's a real question right now.
Well, there's a misconception, I think, about where interesting things come from. And I think people think that they have to come from sort of rare or magnificent experiences. They don't. They really don't have to at all. I'm choosing this example arbitrarily. But the song Bad Moon Rising by Creedence Clearwater Revival, and now John Fogerty, that he has his catalog back, is playing it on his tour. He's 80 years old and he's still touring. He's crushing it. Anyway, that song came from watching the movie of The Devil and Daniel Webster. It's a famous stage play. It was a famous movie. In that movie, a farmer makes a deal with a devil to, essentially protect his farm from terrible storm, whatever. Well, this is the storm coming. The bad moon is rising. Well, it's a song that the entire world knows at this point, even though it's 50 years old. It's more than 50. It's like closer to 60 years old. Catchy as hell. And it's because a guy watched a movie. He was a kid when he watched it, because a kid watched a movie. That's not a remarkable experience. And it's not like it's the greatest film in the history of the world either. I bet nobody listening to this, except if the Kino Corner happens to be, has ever watched The Devil and Daniel Webster. I've seen the play, but I've never watched the movie. So you get a great song from that. That's not remarkable. You didn't go into great debt throwing probably 25 cents to go see the movie. So remarkable things can come from unremarkable places. And almost all the time they do. Kevin, when we talk about ourselves, past things, we've talked about basically the grind that built up careers and all of that. How many times does one of us reference you slinging chicken wings?
Yeah, all the time. All the time.
All the time. Was that remarkable? Did Uncle Moneybags pull some incredible connections to get you that gig?
No. I walked in.
No.
I actually liked eating at this chicken wing place. It was kind of close.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You started by eating there.
I started by eating there.
Okay.
It was not too far from my apartment where I was living at the time. And I had heard that there were job openings for line cooks. So I went in and applied and did an interview, and I was hired. That was what happened. With no cooking experience, by the way. I had worked in restaurants, bartending and serving and dishwashing, but I never cooked before. So, they took a little bit of a chance, a little bit of a risk with me as a wild card, but it paid off. I worked there for 3 years. I had a lot of good memories from there, met a lot of good people, made a lot of good friends. And it was literally deep frying French fries and chicken wings and mixing them in sauce buckets. I mean, that's not exciting.
Who do you think is going to write a better kitchen drama? Kevin, with that experience? Or me saying, you know what? I've watched 3 seasons of The Bear. I've seen that media. I'm going to write my kitchen show.
Right. You know exactly what it's like to work in a kitchen from watching
I know
The Bear.
Exactly what it's like. Yes, chef. It's screaming yes, chef all the time.
Mm.
Yeah, no, obviously Kevin's is going to be much more realistic and he'll be able to play with reality too, and make things funny that didn't happen in real life or make things dramatic that didn't happen in real life. He'll identify those spots, so anyway, really mundane thing. One of the early, I guess, experiences that made me very, very patient with work is that I had to polish the tacks, the copper and brass tacks on a wooden canoe that was a vintage sort of museum quality canoe. There were over 4,000 of those tacks, and each one had to be polished individually. Like with precision too, because if you got too close to the edge, they were embedded, right? So they were a little bit below the surface of the wood. With a grinding wheel, which was like the third iteration, it started with tiny, tiny pieces of sandpaper. And eventually, I suggested, hey, we can do this, another way. Let's try this. Let's try that. We ended up getting jewelry polishing wheels with a multi-tool. Okay. And that was amazing in terms of how well it cleaned the head of each tack. But that also meant you've got this kind of fast spinning abrasive that when it makes contact with the wood, it's going to bite into the wood, and you don't want to bite into the wood. So really good, but came with, some liabilities there. Either way, 4,000 plus is a lot of tacks to polish individually. I didn't know why it had to be done. I didn't really know anything about that, but that was the job, right? It was, this guy needed all the tacks polished on his canoe, and he was going to pay me to do it. And so I did it. It was in a small workshop that was heated by a potbelly stove because it was in the winter. There was a deer hanging and aging at the other end of the workshop because he wanted to age it something like 6 weeks, where it rots on the outside, and then you slice that layer off, and the meat is seasoned underneath. It's aged underneath, but it makes for a funny smell. It's not quite rotten, but it's not pleasant either. I can't even describe it because I've never smelled it any other way. But doing 4,000 of these in that environment was, an experience. I can grind out like any manner of here's a stack of 200 magazines. Let's find an article that's cool. Like I'm fine with that. I can read through 1,000 pages and hope to find a good paragraph. It was extremely important. From like the most boring thing ever.
Yeah, I can't
totally
imagine
unremarkable.
something more boring than that. It's really bad.
I didn't have any music or radio or anything either. It was just me in the cold.
How long did that take?
I wish I remembered. I want to say probably 30 to 40 hours. That's my estimate. But it also was like doing a good job with that and showing the discipline and commitment. And, I didn't complain about it. Led to a great deal more work. That was a lot better than that type of stuff. But in a way, it's a very generalized version of, Mr. Miyagi doing wax on, wax off. Could I write something that was interesting that had somebody doing this insane 4,000 or 5,000 tack polish? Yeah, I could actually turn it into something interesting. Cause I've had that experience. Is that the best example in the world? Probably not. But the point is that super mundane things, are still things, right? And other people, everybody actually has mundane experiences. Not everybody has remarkable experiences. So the mundane stuff, slinging chicken wings and sanding tacks, well, it's a lot easier to relate to something like that. You don't need the money. You don't need anything. You don't need a remarkable opportunity. You just have to do stuff. And as stupid as that sounds, that's the problem, right? If you want to be remarkable, if you're like 22 and a man, here are 3 things that would make you remarkable. Talk to a woman in person. Okay. Ask a man, whatever, whomever you have romantic or sexual interest in. Talk to one of these people in person and ask them on a date. What are the stats, Kevin? Do you remember the stats about how few people guys under 25 have talked to a romantic interest in person?
I don't remember the stats, but it was let's just say a lot lower in the last 10 years than it was in the previous 80, however long they were tracking that.
Yeah, it was like 40% of people have done this. So if you do that, you've instantly distanced yourself from 60% of the men your age. Let's see. Some of the others would follow along from that date type thing. What was that? Like seeing friends more than like once a month. It was like 18% of people have done that in person again. So if in your life you have talked to a romantic interest and you manage to do something outside twice a month, you're like in the top 10%, period. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. The third thing, whatever you want, read some books. You realize that nobody reads the classics anymore? Nobody does. For free on Amazon or for 99 cents for the convenience, you can get like 20, 30, 50 books all in one PDF file that are like the classics of human history. And if you read those, you'd be 1 in 1,000. Okay. So talk to somebody you're romantically interested in. Okay.
In person.
In person. That's right. You can't text them. In person. Every few weeks, do something in the world and read some free books. Congratulations. You are in the top 0.01% of humanity.
That's true.
Yeah. That's all it takes to be interesting now. Throw in the stuff like get a job, volunteer. I understand that jobs are hard to get, right? You can't just pull a Lieber and walk into a place because you like what you eat there and walk out with a job. The market's changed a little bit. So it's tighter. We're not in that golden era anymore. But there are a billion opportunities to help people. Go to a neighbor and just be like, what sucks that I can do for you? And then you do it. Go do some volunteering thing. Go clean up. Go do something with your body that allows you to feel what happens when you use your body. Strain, pain, anything like that. If you want to be, how can you be creative? And this is what kills me about the pale Morlocks who write almost everything at this point, they have never broken a sweat in their lives. How can they write about anything where pain is involved? Pain that comes from real shit, not, I don't know, the pain that everybody feels. Dentist pain. I'll throw you under the bus, Kevin. But like
mouth.
Waking up the next day after you've had to haul a bunch of stuff and your quads just burn. You've had to go up like a ton of stairs carrying things for a day, and your quads feel like yogurt. Or you do something where your arms get to the point you're in the shower and you go to shampoo your hair, and lifting your arms that high just kills. This happens. This is what happens when you use your body, right? And how much better could you write a scene where your character is wincing as he rubs the head and shoulders in, or goes to get out of bed and puts his body weight on legs that have been obliterated the day before, and stumbles over because he's oddly weak, or it takes him a long time to straighten up because he's so sore that it's just like, I'm trying to describe myself here about all the things that happen. Like, I put my feet on the floor and like slowly unfold upright because it hurts. That's interesting. That's more real. That's not just like, ow, Lydia, get the aspirin, Lydia. My back hurts from my manual labor of yesterday. Like, no, this is dumb. Again, these are not remarkable things. Help a friend move, okay? And you'll feel all these things. That's all you have to do. Or move yourself. Yeah, it's out there.
The thing is, though, they are things. Like, you have to do things. It's just doing things. I think that's the secret sauce here. It's not that complicated, but I mean, so much of what I have drawn upon in Sleep Warrior in my book are real stories from my past, and of course, like, they are changed and modified in ways that work with the characters and everything. But literally, when I'm stuck on a part and say, I need to come up with, I need some kind of backstory for how these two characters feel about each other right now. Like, what was the turning point or like a defining moment that, shaped their relationship?
Yeah.
I don't watch a bunch of movies and TV shows and copy something from Sleepless in Seattle or Twilight or something like that. I just think about my own life. I think about formative moments in my own life, because the reason I remember them is because they were formative. That's how, memory works for most people, is you remember things that stood out in your life.
Yeah.
And I think, like, that changed, a relationship in my family because XYZ happened. Maybe I can have XYB happen to these characters, right? But that's where I am drawing from when I'm writing this story, is real life events that are kind of mundane, because it's often those mundane things that have huge ramifications for people. Or it was like this weird little thing that happened that broke the camel's back. Like, it was this argument, like this one argument over this completely innocuous thing, actually changed lives. Like, you know, that is that is how it works. But just sitting on the internet or playing video games or watching movies, I could steal those from other things, but there's no way that that's going to be unique because it inherently isn't. It's just a copy. Whereas if I talk about something that happened to me while I was deep frying chicken wings with this one guy, gosh, the first night I was training, there was this guy that worked there who was a really, really bad alcoholic. Top, I think actually number one worst alcoholic I've ever encountered in person. Okay.
No kidding.
Number one.
We've known some bad ones.
Well, as far as I know, he's long dead at this point due to his alcoholism. Like, he was head and shoulders above anyone I've ever known, drinking just preposterous amounts of whiskey every single day. To the point where I remember one of my coworkers telling me, so anyway, he got fired that night. He was training me. Like, he had been working there for however long. I was a trainee learning, here's how you deep fry Twinkies, right? Here's where the pancake batter is. You dunk it, coat all sides of it, 30 seconds, then flip it 30 seconds, whatever. Training to deep fry Twinkies. And this dude was hammered, could barely keep it together on the line at work. And subsequently, even though he was friends with the manager and some of the people that had worked there for a while, he got fired that night. This helped me get the job, by the way, because I was in a trial period. I didn't just get the job. Laughing hysterically. This guy drank himself to death, but it opened up an opportunity for me.
The guy who was training me got hit by lightning, and that was sad, but it did help me get a job.
Yeah, he fell in the deep fryer and deep fried his head, and and they said, "You're hired." That is how that went down, though. I didn't get hired on the spot. They had like a 2-week training period, and then decided whether or not they would actually hire you. So anyway, I did get hired, partly because of the fact that this dude who was training me got fired that night. And I remember months later, someone who was close friends with him, who I worked with, told me that his doctor told him that he could not stop drinking or he would die. Like, that's how bad.
Deep at that point.
Yes, that's how bad he was.
Yeah.
Like, he literally couldn't stop drinking or he was going to die. Anyway, I have that story. From the first night of training at this chicken wing job.
What a remarkable opening to a show that would be. The main character walks in day one. He's like 5 minutes into, what's obviously a confusing thing that he's never done.
Yeah, I'm nervous. I'm for sure nervous because I want to make a good impression. I want to get hired. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And then, a minute later, the guy who's supposed to train him stumbles in, like vomits in the corner and gets fired. And, it's like, congratulations, you're the new, guy at this station. Go. Yeah. Oh, okay. You've got some instant drama there.
Yeah. That's the beginning of a story right there. It's page
amazing.
1.
It is absolutely. That's really a good opening to anything. Right. And where did it come from? Just doing something, it would be endless to list all the things like this that both of us have, and like I've mentioned before, I keep a list of things that I think of. I'm going to, by the way, one of the most interesting characters in the history of literature is Tom Sawyer, who Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, the two of them. They just kind of went and did stuff, and it was awesome. They met people and did things, and it didn't cost any money. Remarkable. You can still do that. I'm not sure I would be like a hobo on the Mississippi, which, by the way, did you see this? I got to show you the sticker, Kevin. You see this?
Does that say hobo on it?
Yeah. There's a place in Tunisia called Hobo Chicken Trip, and it was really good fried chicken. And I took one of the stickers, put it on my phone. It It just says hobo and it's a big chicken. Yeah, I don't know if I would be like a vagabond on the Mississippi in 2025, but you can just go and do shit. You can put yourself in, unique situations, but you have to meet different kinds of people. And that's where like 80% of my notes that I put in, where they come from. Trying to pull one that's appropriate. So here's one that young people have managed to turn their naivete from a charm into a defect. For generations, young people have been naive and it has been charming as hell. It's just the sweetest thing. You look at, you've looked at young people who are idealistic or energetic or whatever, and you're like, bless them. It's going to go, reality's going to crash into them, like whatever it is, but oh, this is great. That's how it used to be. Now you go on any kind of social media site and you see extremely naive young people, for example, talking about politics, and it's obnoxious. It's grating. They're, in some cases, terrible people, and they're putting that on display. It's horrible. So this is a really modern phenomenon that being a naive teenager, for example, isn't charming. They've figured out how to turn it from an asset into a liability. That's fascinating. Well, you find that out from just plain mixing it up with a lot of different people. This is a grim one, but the owners of all the phone numbers that I remember are all dead now.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I remember a single phone number right now of a living person. All the landlines that I remembered throughout my life, all the people who had those are dead.
Sorry, you know what? I was just thinking about this the other day. You know what really sucks now? There are a lot of things that suck about cell phones and stories. Here's one that really sucks. You can't slam the phone down to hang up on someone anymore.
Oh, yeah.
You're right. Right. Like that was such a thing. You have an argument on the phone and you're pissed off and you just you're just going to hang up on them and you just slam the phone down and the bell inside the physical bell inside that phone makes a clang. And on the other end, they get that dial tone, that like dead dial tone, like that. All of that entire action is erased, is what every level of that action is completely gone. That sucks.
They took a weapon from us.
That sucks. So, I mean, You can't slam a phone on. What do? You just click end call, which makes no noise whatsoever. And then the other person hears no noise anymore. And that's it. That's the end of it. What a travesty.
At best, there's a disconnection. Then they hear like beep, beep, beep. And that's it. That's it.
Maybe.
That's something. And like my phone number thing, both of these things, we couldn't have gotten that faster, right? Time has given us those stories, and that can't be rushed. Things have just changed. So there's an element of that. But I'm stuck here because of how simple all of this is. You have to like open your eyes, think about what's around you, and then do things so that you're around different stuff, different people. It can't just be in your bedroom all day. This is all it takes. All it takes. And all the people who make really great media have... I'm going to let Kevin set the numbers on this, okay? What percentage do you think have interesting experiences versus are just plain mentally ill? Because a lot of really good media has come from people without tremendous life experience who are just programmed oddly.
Oh, man. I mean, I'm probably a bad person to ask on that because I think almost all of them are mentally ill in some way.
Okay.
Yeah, I really do. Like, I think that almost everyone who obsesses over something as particular as like, say, like writing a book. Like that is an insane process. It's very weird. Like you have to just sit there and write words on a blank piece of paper for a really long time, having absolutely no idea if anybody's interested in this. And just in my personal life, the people who I have met IRL who are interested in writing in particular, in like 7 seconds, I'm like, oh, you're crazy. Like I can tell
they deviate from the main.
You're unwell. Yeah. And I mean, musicians too. The musicians that I've known, like being like a real musician, like a person who plays out, all the time is a really weird person. And I learned that firsthand when I was living in Portland, and I became friends with people who were working musicians. Like that's all they did. They didn't have jobs. Their job was to play gigs. And a lot of times those gigs paid in like beer, and they didn't mind. Like I minded. I wanted to have a nice, clean apartment.
Right.
I wanted to like regularly be able to go grocery shopping and pay for my internet bill. These people, both men and women, did not care about any of that stuff. They could sleep in the van. They could crash at somebody's house who they didn't know. And like they lived that kind of vagabond, devil may care kind of life. And all they had to do was get to the next gig to get $50 or whatever that they got for doing that, and get high and drink and just do it all over again the next day. That is a really particular type of person. I'm not saying that they are mentally ill at all. I mean, that doesn't have to be the case. Right. That's also like a very specific, medical affliction. But at the same time, it's a really particular type of person that is willing to live that way.
Radically different set of priorities and risk tolerance and all of that stuff.
Yeah. And just a tiny portion of the human population, like a very small number of people have like those amount of priorities, goals, interests, and kind of wants and needs line up in such a way that they'll just live inside a van that breaks down every 2 weeks and not care.
Yeah. I want to pull a few things out of the notes here. One thing that I threw in a couple weeks ago. Actually, I think I was in Tbilisi when this occurred to me. That it is very, very easy to make the night interesting. There are 100 things you can do at night that are interesting, fun, whatever. It is so much more difficult to make days interesting. What a strange dichotomy that is, that it's incredibly easy to make the night interesting. It's incredibly hard to make the days interesting. In general, I don't mean going on vacation, whatever. I mean, just generally, it's so much easier to find something you want to do at night than at like 11 a.m. The stuff that happens at 11 a.m. is generally way worse. You want to do it a lot less than at 10 p.m. That doesn't come from any special experience. That realization just was there. And it's not remarkable. I'm not going to turn that into something that gets me a Pulitzer. But it's the kind of thing that you could put into, well, I mean, I know a lot of people like this in real life who are fantastic at making the nights interesting, and they are useless in the days. It's gotten a little better as I've gotten older. But I'm sure that everybody knows people who are wizards in the evening and just barely even exist during the days. Old people do so much stuff during the day and early because they've gotten good at figuring out how to make days interesting. So interesting that things during the day compete with what used to be at night. That's why 68-year-old women don't go to the bars on Friday nights. Well, there are a lot of reasons why, but that's one of them. But the older you get, the more experience you have at making daytime interesting. Well, that could factor into all sorts of characters that you write or, put in a film or something like that. A lot of notable characters have this kind of backwards too. So think about, I don't know if it was Amy Schumer had a movie like this. There's a genre of like, this person is too old to be living like this movies, where it's somebody in their
Grandma's
late
boy.
30s, 40s, grandma's boy. Yeah. Yeah. Where really by that point, that person should have figured out how to make the days interesting. They have totally failed. That's just a thing that's in the world, right? And it's there every single day. Anybody could think of that. That's just mundane stuff. There are all sorts of elements we use, or elements of language that we still use that have no relevance to life anymore. One of which is blue collar. Talking about blue collar people and even working class people. I mean, working class. Virtually everybody works. So what is the distinction? When does working not entail working class? Where do you draw the line? But you have a term like blue collar or white collar, and we know what that means, and it's clear as day what that means. But the words don't mean at all what they originally did with, dyes and shirt colors and things like that. There are tons of weird things that are still totally relevant, but their components are irrelevant. We know on the white and blue collar, what that means. Sometimes nobody even really knows why a thing is called what it's called anymore. When you hear about one of those, think about it for 10 seconds. Think about it. And then say to somebody, isn't that weird? Is that weird? Have a conversation about it. Boom. You're an interesting person that day to them.
Well, yeah. I mean, just look up all of the phrases that we have from horse racing. that was always one of the strangest realizations that I had. I was like, oh, like 3% of all of our idioms or, phrases that we use come from horse racing, which who in the world is interested in horse racing anymore? I mean, some people are. The Kentucky Derby is pretty big, in its own way. But it's not like, I mean, when was the last time you were at a horse race?
Yeah. Dan the Latch says, 4% are from baseball. This is a particular challenge for me when I'm in other countries. I occasionally will use idioms that go with baseball or the NFL that don't make sense to anybody. And then I'll have to instantly rephrase it. Yeah, I mean, that's quirky, but these idioms are all over the place. They've had lives of their own. It's that simple to pull one of those out. Let me see. Here's one, is somebody who smells like a fishmonger's fingernails. And this came from being in a fish market that just was disgusting. It smelled worse than anything I've smelled in my life. And after I walked out, I was like, man, you could shower and wash your hands and all this stuff and not get that smell off you if you're one of these guys. And I thought, I bet the hardest part to clean is under the fingernails, because these guys weren't wearing gloves. There's no way that smell ever gets out of a fishmonger's fingernails. Little tiny bits like that. Well, you see something, you think about it for 10 seconds. There's just no end to these things.
Can I interject with a bit of advice that I would have to people who are introverts like me when it comes to doing things, which is maybe something I've mentioned in the past, but I'll mention it again because this is relevant for this topic, is to say yes to opportunities, because it is way easier to say no. It is super easy if someone asks you to do something or to go somewhere or to help them with something or join a thing or whatever it is. Literally anyone giving you some opportunity to go do a thing. Oh my gosh, it's way easier to say no, because then you don't have to do anything after that. Then it's over. That's the end, right? That's literally
Yeah.
the end of that thing. If someone, so it's like this with the, maybe I did talk about this in relation to the TEDx opportunity. So I got an opportunity to do a TEDx talk in Vienna, Austria. I do not like traveling. So right out of the gate, it's like, ugh, I have to fly on an airplane to Vienna. That's very far. I didn't know what I would do a talk about. I didn't have a talk. So I'm like, what in the world do I have to say? Now I have to do a presentation, a monologue alone on stage in front of however many hundreds of people in another country. Just the idea of that.
This is your nightmare.
All of it's bad.
Yeah. If I were to design an experience to make you as uncomfortable as possible, it would roughly be this.
Yeah. All of it checks the cons, the cons box of the things.
The only thing I would
have
done, it's on the stage. I would have set the whole thing up as a beach.
Yes.
It would have been sand everywhere.
Yeah.
And then
outside.
It officially would have been the nightmare.
Yeah. Put the stage on the beach. Exactly. It's an outdoor event. In the middle of the day with the sun just beaming on me. That's the only way it could have been worse. All of this is bad. And I did not get paid to do this. This is not a paid opportunity. So it's not like, oh, well, if I do this, I'll get, $500 or something like that. So it's worth it. No, it's for $0, but actually less than $0 because obviously when I'm there, I have to buy food to eat and, exist there. So now I'm spending money to do this opportunity. And a long time ago in college, actually, is when this started. I had decided to just say yes. I decided that if someone comes to me with a thing they want me to do, even if I really, really don't want to do it, and it's so much easier to just say no, because then that's the end. Whereas if I say yes, that's the beginning. What an interesting bifurcation that is. If you say no, it's over. If you say yes, you've started a thing that now takes a lot of steps and a lot of prep, and you have to go through a lot of stress and a lot of, worry about the thing. Am I going to do a good job? Am I going to do a bad job? Is the flight going to get delayed? What do I pack? All of like the George Costanza, Larry David neuroticism that I have to deal with. That's the beginning of that by saying yes. But what had happened to me in college was two things I said yes to. One was auditioning for an improv comedy group. Okay, I did not want to do this. This was not something I was looking to do. I knew that they were auditioning people. I had zero intent on going to those auditions, but the director of that group was in the same class as me, a public speaking class, just, serendipitously by accident. And she asked me to come to the audition personally. She said, I want you to come to this audition. I think you would be good in our comedy group. Please come.
Okay.
And I said yes. That ended up going really well. I was in that group for several years. When she graduated, she asked me to be the director. Now I'm the director of this group and I'm running it, So that ended up being a really good thing because I said yes. The other was the working for the newspaper. So the student newspaper, I had been submitting comic strips to the comic section of the newspaper. It was kind of a similar thing where the editor was graduating. She asked me if I would take over as the editor of that for that section for the newspaper. I said yes. And then I went on to, run that for several years. I expanded upon it. I added a whole other comedy section to that where we were doing satirical essays and all that stuff. And that ended up running for many, 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 many more years after I graduated, that new section that I added. So anyway, all of this is to say that neither one of these things were things that I wanted to do. And maybe there are plenty of things that you listening to this podcast don't want to do. because it's scary or it's risky, or what if you fail, or what if you make yourself look like an idiot, or it's too much work and like, maybe you just don't want to commit to it, whatever it is. My recommendation would be to just say yes, even if you don't want to, because now you're doing a thing. And this is the whole point of this podcast, is like, now you're doing a thing. Now, because I said yes to the improv comedy group, I had years of experience of doing that with different people, coming up with themes for the different shows, writing skits, writing songs, like hiring and firing people. I had to deal with this opera house where we were performing, wanting to kick us out. And now I'm having to go to meetings with the directors of this opera house and stating my case for why we should continue to perform our shows there. All of this other stuff happened that never possibly would have happened if I said no and I just stayed in my apartment and played Madden. Because those were the options, or stay in my apartment, play Madden, or say yes. And now this cascade of life experience unfolded.
This is how it works. And there were a lot of people doing this stuff at the times that we were saying yes to most things. Now almost nobody does.
No one is saying yes.
And I can't. I'm uncomfortable even saying this because it's such a condemnation of so many people.
But the data backs it up. You're not pulling this out of your ass.
Yeah.
Like, there's constant data rolling in about all of this stuff. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not a theory.
No, it's not a theory. It's not me being particularly unkind about young people. It's not that at all. They don't do these things. They don't do much of anything.
I don't think it's just young people either. I think it's plenty of people in our generation as well. I mean, this isn't like, Gen Z or whatever. It's like, no, I blame millennials and lump them into this group as much as anyone.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Especially with storytelling stuff where we're talking about all of these stories being boring because they have no life experience. These are millennials writing these crappy stories that have never done anything.
No, that's true. That's true. It's just never been easier to stand out. Like, Kevin, if you'd think about your chicken wing story, if you'd said that when it happened, pretty much everybody would have been like, "Oh, you got lucky. That was cool." Like, you happened to, they happened to be hiring and you walked in, boom, that's it. Now, something like that is so uncommon. It's kind of a wild story. What was a fairly normal thing where, you obviously took initiative for it, but it's not like the craziest story in the world. You're like, no, they had an opening and I talked to them about the opening, but now when was the last time I heard a story like that from anybody? It's been a long, long time from, somebody essentially cold calling and trying to get any kind of opportunity, whether it was a long shot or not. The bar is so low to be noteworthy and do noteworthy things. It's hard for me to understand.
But even then, it's hard it was a lot of that stuff was heavily relationship based, because I remember, and it's not like that was the first job I applied for. This is like, survivorship bias. This is the one that I got. There were other jobs that I wanted to get that I didn't get. And real quick, I'll tell this story just because it was funny at the time, and it speaks to the fact that, you need to know someone to get in somewhere. There was a bar that was like right near my apartment that I really wanted to. Oh, Mr. Weir's listening. Mr. Weir knows this bar. It's called The Bog, I believe.
Oh,
this was
Bog,
dude. This was this was a dive. I loved it. It was really dark. They played like heavy metal. Like, it was like the perfect Kevin Lieber bar when I'm like 25-year-old Kevin Lieber.
Is this Bar of the Gods?
Yeah. What, did you look it up?
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Bar of the Gods. Is it still there?
Well, they've got a website, but it says we're currently closed.
That doesn't
I don't
sound
know if that doesn't sound good. I mean, maybe they have like a little widget thing. Would they be open at 12:30
No,
on a
absolutely
Friday?
not. No, they would not be open at 12:30.
Okay.
No. I think they opened at 4.
Okay, so maybe it is just a thing there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Friday 3 p.m. to 2:30 a.m.
Oh, in the description on this website, it says Portland Dive Bar. It's like, this is a definitive dive bar. Okay. When you picture
Looks great.
what it is, what a dive bar is, it's this, just nasty bathroom with like stickers and graffiti all over the walls. Like, it was great. And they, like exclusively played really heavy rock music. I loved it. Anyway, I wanted to work there. I didn't have a job. I needed a job. I thought I've worked in bars. I should get a job at this bar that I like. I talked to the bartender, asked him for a job, and he literally told me I needed to become a regular there. He's like, you need to start coming in all the time so that you get to know everyone who works here. And then maybe eventually we'll hire you as a bar back. That's what I was asking to do, was not be a bartender, just be a bar back, which is the lowest rung. That's the bottom of the barrel at a bar. You don't make drinks. You don't sell drinks. You don't work a cash register. You like clean up puke, basically. That's your job. You are the grunt of the bar. To be the grunt of the bar, he flat out was like, if you want to work here, you got to hang out here, man. Like, you need to be here all the time. We need to get to know you. If we think that you're cool and eventually there's, a position for you, then maybe we'll hire you. But he was just straight up. Like, there was no pretense about it at all. It was like, become a barfly at the Bog, and then maybe we'll hire you eventually someday. I was like, okay, well, I kind of need a job now. So this isn't really going to work out for me. But when you talk about like, oh, it was amazing, you could just like walk into a chicken wing place and get hired on the spot. Like, okay, not exactly. That's definitely exaggerating things as well.
Well, I feel like too many people at this point. I'm trying to kind of summarize my thoughts on this stuff, even though there's so much more to this. But I feel like a lot of people believe what was in that comment, that you have to have connections, you have to have money, you have to make tremendous sacrifice, you have to get just really lucky. I really feel bad if somebody believes that, because it is so false. It's completely false. And we could do a whole episode on this. And if you do have those things, it's almost a liability. People with money, fantastic educations, all of this stuff are generally some of the most worthless NPC ding-dongs you could ever imagine. They are not interesting people on average.
I would agree with that. Yeah. They're all extremely similar. Extremely similar.
I could literally name more interesting people from the very small place around me than I could name from all the years I spent at very high-end institutions.
Their most interesting stories are like what restaurant that they ate the best lobster ravioli. Like, that's the extent of their interesting stories.
I don't talk to those people about any of the travel that I do or have done, because they don't talk about the same things with the places. They are not interested in the stuff. And to be honest, I don't care about the things that they talk about, like the restaurants and this and that. So anyway, the great opportunities that seem like they're a fast track to being interesting are generally the opposite. So if you think that you need any of those things, it's just wrong. And maybe you believe it. Maybe you're just making excuses for not doing any of the things that we've talked about. But be honest. It's not the world keeping you down. You're just not doing stuff.
Dude, the guy who dug my septic tank is probably might be the most interesting person I've ever met in my entire life. I mean, the amount of stories that this guy had, it was endless. Just you couldn't believe the stuff, that side hustles that he had, driving to Maine to buy lobsters so then he could flip them in Boston for 10x what he bought them for. This guy had endless stories, and he was the complete opposite of some sort of bougie, wealthy. I mean, just the polar opposite of someone who, this guy had no opportunities and he just did stuff constantly. He was the Energizer bunny of doing stuff. And as a result, I would talk to him. I would keep him here after he was done working for an hour and just milk stories out of this guy. And I there's no way I barely scratched the surface of everything that this guy had to say. It was just remarkable.
If you plucked somebody randomly from the local country club, the likelihood of them being half as interesting as this guy is virtually zero.
No way.
Yeah. Virtually zero.
Yeah. Some story about what they, golfed last week. Who cares?
So it's never been easier to stand out, to be interesting. It's never been more accessible. It's never been cheaper. Before we started recording, I was talking about how cheap international travel is. Cheapest in 15 years. 15 years. The books being able to buy digital now, you don't even have to take the time to go to the library. Libraries stink anyway. They're a very solitary thing. Get if you're listening to this, you got some kind of device. Everybody's got a phone that can have the Kindle app. There are a lot of $0 books out there that are classics. Anyway, the things that are there to become interesting using them, never been more accessible, never been easier, never been cheaper, ever.
Well, and this is something that we did have done over and over again on Vsauce too, when it comes to video topics, is that there is such an endless vault of books that no one is reading. No one cares about this stuff, and they have fascinating ideas in them, and a lot more interesting than Jurassic Park 6.
Yeah, it's all right there. And we're at a time where the fewest people are taking advantage of any of this. And when you're kind of getting replaced by the amalgamated technologies of AI and this and that, it's just like the payoff is tremendous. It's shocking. It's right there. It's dangling in front of you. If you don't do these things, if you don't pursue being interesting, it is just completely on you. There's nothing stopping you. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It's aside from some places like North Korea where your access is limited, things like online. But pretty much if you can listen to this podcast, all of what we're talking about is free and available to you. That's it. It's there. If you don't do it, it's not the boomers' fault. It's not capitalism's fault. It's not the world's fault. It's you. You're a loser. You've chosen to be a loser. I just can't pretend it's anything other than that anymore. You stink. It's just your fault at this point. All of this good stuff is being laid out on the grandest buffet in human history. And you're like, oh, I'm a picky eater. Oh, I can't do that. Like, no, this is on you.
What did you say the flights to Reykjavik were? $120?
Yeah, I mean, let me see. So Play Airlines, which I haven't flown. The best stuff, by the way, I'm too old for. I can't do hostel life. I can't do that. Like, literally wouldn't be allowed in, even if I could stomach it, because I'm 800 years old. But Play Airlines is an example. There are many airlines like this, where if you just want a seat and a backpack full of stuff, you can get between continents for a couple $100. If you're not hyper picky on where you go, you just wait around. $200, $300. It's 30% off flights to Iceland right now. Well, go to Iceland. Who knows? Maybe it looks boring on paper. Who knows? But I mean, I've seen in the 300s getting from the US to Spain, Italy, Germany, Portugal, even places like Japan, which are traditionally very, very expensive. I've seen US to Japan for $650. This isn't, pennies. This is a significant amount of money. You got to eat, you got to sleep somewhere, all this stuff. But think about what you're doing with the money in your life. You're almost certainly doing stupid things with it. Too many stupid things. And even if you're not doing dumb things, just say no. Tighten your belt. Save a little bit. Sell some things. It doesn't take a lot, is my point. You can spend a week in a place like Spain for, I don't know, I'm trying to do a quick comparison. Well, it'd be cheaper than going anywhere in the US. Absolutely cheaper, other than doing like a hyper budget thing between like New York and Florida on Breeze or whatever. But even like the hotels and stuff in the US add up so fast.
Yeah, they're really expensive here.
Yeah, they're prohibitively expensive.
Yeah.
So if you can't stomach the mundane stuff that we've talked about, going outside and talking to people and whatever, and you're like, oh, the best way to do this is to throw yourself in the middle of an unfamiliar place. It's the cheapest it has been in your adult lifetime. There's no, will it get cheaper? I don't know, but I don't see how it can get much cheaper. There's a floor to this. Now is the time. And even going to, you don't even have to work very hard. One of the things that I like the most is going to fast food places in other countries that are like, McDonald's, Burger King. I love going to the US fast food places to eat the different menu items that are there. You don't have to do anything remarkable. You don't have to like snort live squid somewhere. You can literally go to Burger King in another country and have awesome, different, weird menu items and get a thrill out of it.
And have a story out of it.
And have a story. Yeah.
That's a story right there. Yeah.
Get a passport if you don't have one. Even that's easier than it used to be. You had to get documents together and like make an appointment, do all of this shit to get a passport. And now you can just do it all at the post office in the US. It is so much easier than it was 10 years ago. There's no excuse for any of this at all. It just kills me for people thinking like, oh, how am I going to stand out in this population of 8 billion? Well, first of all, recognize that almost everybody is lazy and stinks. Okay? You don't have to do very much because they've set the bar so incredibly low for you. You need the slightest bit of initiative. And yes, probably making a couple sacrifices like, I don't know, door dashing and Steam wish listing less for like a month. And then, it unlocks being one of the most interesting people anybody in your life knows. And a great deal of happiness because you're seeing a lot more about the world than you did beforehand. Kevin and I were briefly, this is also its own issue. The people elements of basically in-person commerce, auctions and flea markets and shows and all of that stuff is so super interesting when you dive into it. And that's a case of just like encountering people in the world. I like that particular type of encounter. Other people like, going to bars and talking to bartenders. Some people like, going to restaurants and eating food and interfacing with adventurous dishes. I don't know, whatever. But you just have to do it. That's it. The most mundane thing is interesting. If you don't believe it, search anything on YouTube. We've spent years talking about niche weirdos who have millions of fans. One of the coolest things I ever saw on YouTube was the Marble Olympics. I still look that up now and again, where a guy had an idea to have marbles racing on like little obstacle courses. That's it. The Marble Olympics are great. And you watch it for 15 minutes and you actually start like kind of cheering for like orange marbles. The guys who do excavation with radio controlled excavating gear. Like there's this one guy who's been excavating his basement for like 15 years now. That's super interesting. You can do anything. You can do anything. I'm frustrated because I know that too few people will take this to heart.
Well, it's because it's just easier to not. like I said earlier, you just don't, and then you're done with it. None of the other stuff has to happen.
In the chat, check out Bo Miles and his Backyard Adventures YouTube channel, finding cool adventures locally. He became famous for walking to work. It took him 3 days.
3 days.
That's very interesting. Walking to work when it takes days. Certainly accessible. You know, it's all accessible. It's all there. Don't stink. Don't be a loser.
Yeah. And really the kind of the best way to summarize it, if you don't do anything, then nothing happens. And then you have no stories. You have nothing to talk about. So it's not really more complicated than that.
You'll be miserable. You'll probably be alone. You can't have things in common with other people when you don't have anything yourself. Like you've got to do some things to have them in common with other people, you know? You will feel fulfilled, even if you hate a thing. Before we started recording, I was denigrating all sorts of places and people. You know, when you go places, it's not always awesome. Sometimes you swing and miss, or you don't like, you know, different aspects. But that's its own bit of feeling fulfilled. Like just because the data you've collected is negative doesn't mean you haven't collected data.
Well, that's a story too. Now you have a reason why to not like a thing, which is much different than just making it up or basing it upon somebody else said something sucked. Well, I read that this thing sucked, so I think it sucks. It's like, well, you actually don't know. Maybe you would like it. You know, that's my thing with the beach, man. Like, I do not like the beach. Everyone else does. I'm alone in this opinion. But if I had never experienced beaches, and I've experienced many beaches, then I wouldn't have that quirk. I wouldn't have that idiosyncrasy. Like Kevin does not like the beach. Well, that's kind of weird, considering that's like the place that, I mean, look, it's the highest, most valuable real estate in every country on the planet is beachfront property. Why is it valuable? Well, supply and demand. There's not a lot of it, and a lot of people demand it because people love being at the beach. I don't. It's sandy and dirty, and it's way too hot, and it's uncomfortable. And I get, you know,
it's coarse.
I get burned.
What is the Star Wars on this?
You get sand in your food.
What is Anakin talking about?
You get sand in your shoes. You know, you're not supposed to wear shoes, but then you have to wear sandals. I don't want to wear sandals.
It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. Yeah. That's what the line is.
Yeah. There you go. It's horrible. It's a terrible place.
Yeah. Well, it's, there's kind of no wrong answer with any of this stuff. You literally can't do it wrong, can you?
No, the only wrong is to just sit around, and it's what this thing started with that tweet about all of these stories just being based on other people's stories. If your life is based upon other people's lives, what is yours? What's your life? I don't know the answer to that. It doesn't seem very good.
You are a husk being filled with someone else's seed.
Yeah, you're a reservoir.
You're a cesspool that somebody else is just pissing into. Congratulations.
All right. Let's stop with cesspool. Let's stop with calling people piss-filled cesspools and end there. Thank you for listening. I hope this was uplifting to you. We really do actually hope that people understand that these types of things are possible. I mean, that was the reason. The reason for talking about this is not for Matt and I to be angry, and it's not for us to denigrate anyone. It genuinely isn't. I know it comes across that way, but it genuinely isn't. What it is instead is from our perspective, we look at the landscape of, you know, people being unable to seemingly engage with things. And we just want to say, this is not only possible, it's a lot more accessible than you realize. Like this, all of these opportunities, and they can be big, they can be small. The small stuff is sometimes a lot more interesting than the big stuff. So don't get, too discouraged by thinking that you have to go on a yacht. I've never been on a yacht. You don't have to go on a yacht to have an interesting story. You can haul slop buckets up 3 flights of stairs on the weekends for a club, and you have stories. It could be anything. It's available. It's like you said, it's right in front of you. It's just a matter of doing it.
Everybody I've talked to related to this podcast has been interesting. Literally every single one. And I wish I kind of led with that, because you're a lot more interesting than you think you are. Very, very, very few people who even think about creativity or even fans of other people's creative work are truly like boring people. It kind of doesn't exist. There's sparks at the very least, but literally everybody. Every single person I've talked to related to this podcast has been interesting in some way. So you should have confidence. You should have confidence that it's there. It's there. It's just a question of how far you want to take it. But yeah, if you're sitting there, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I'm boring. I stink. You're probably wrong about yourself, and it's very easy to be, wrong on the self-assessment. Most people are. And you should feel good about, you should feel very positive and good about all of it. And it's, I stopped just now because how do you reconcile that with how bad everybody seems to feel? It's so strange to me. You have every reason to just feel amazing and awesome. You're almost certainly an interesting person. You have every opportunity in front of you. Life is generally pretty good. Even when it's bad, it's the bad things now are a lot better than the bad things were 50 years ago. Everything is cheaper than it used to be. Like, you should just feel amazing. And so many people don't, but that's definitely another show topic. But yeah, don't feel like, oh, I've wasted all this time. No, nothing matters except what you're doing right now and what you do tomorrow. That's it. So even if you have said no to everything for 20 years, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Say yes to the next thing.
All right.
You haven't left your bathroom in 4 years. That's fine. Go out tomorrow and get the mail.
All right. That's a much better place to end. We're out of here. Thank you to our patrons for supporting the show. If you want to do that, go to Patreon, find the Create Unknown, and give us $2. We'll be back next week. Until then, we'll see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We make this show with the support of our patrons. 100% of that goes directly to keeping episodes going every week. And the recent support has been amazing. Sid Poke, NRM, Venture Addicts, Weezer Good, you all really do make this show happen. Thank you to the Tots and the Dumpster crew, old and new, who save tiny little lives every month. And thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Clemente de los Santos, Dan the Latch, Demetrius Andrews, Erica, Ferry-kun, Jen Mefasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Monahim, Natsu, Penny Piddler, Ryan Steer, Ryan Kinder, Samuel Manser, Sean S., Sean Malone, and Tom Bidiover. And a tremendous shout-out to our elite baby gang commanders. Atrocious Scuff, Kat, Dojangles, Graham Robertson, James Gallagher, Jeff Davis, Orange Vanilla Coke, Patrick Pister, TCU's personal pilot, Andy, Ryan Carroll, Baseweight Vinthos, Yeetus Deletus, Jonas Walter, Nathan Robinson, and of course, Trev Stead. You are the elite. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer, editor Ben Webster, Minecraft mogul Laterman, Discord kitten wrangler Conrad, and producer emeritus Dan Yosua. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme. Thanks to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it, and thanks to Main Gear for powering all our PC endeavors. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.